Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from Indonesia, Indonesian language English subs, released in the year 2017, directed by Joko Anwar, and this film is called Satan's Slaves. So Satan's Slaves is set in a very secluded area in a house that is owned by a troubled family. So you've got a grandmother, a mother who is gravely ill, a father who has the pressure of raising this family and he doesn't know where the next paycheck's coming from, and they might have to sell the house. You also have an older sort of daughter who's on the brink of becoming an adult, so she sees herself as that shining light to really help out the father. A younger son who is this brother who is there to help out the elderly members of this family, and a very young son who's 7 years old. So the whole family trying to band together because this mother used to be a very famous singer. She used to make a very good living, but now that she's been sick for so long, she's fallen off the radar, and so they don't know what to do. So unfortunately for this family, they're about to experience a nightmare, because what they don't realise is that the mother in her past, when she was younger, made a deal with something that is going to have major consequences in their present day. So what those consequences are and what the nightmare consists of is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Satan's Slaves. Indonesian horror and Indonesian action films and Indonesian cinema in general has really made a wave lately. When you think of Indonesian films, you think of The Raid, directed by Gareth Evans. You think of the Mo brothers, Kimo Stambol and Timo Tjahjanto. But the most underrated director, I think, to come out of Indonesia is Joko Anwar. So he definitely lives in the shadows of those directors I've just mentioned. And Joko Anwar, I wouldn't say he's as good as those directors, but he does have a lot of style to his films that actually make him very interesting. And I will say that this movie is very atmospheric, and as far as atmosphere is concerned, I definitely feel as though Joko Anwar possesses a lot more potential than those directors I've just mentioned, but unfortunately his name just doesn't get out there as much. And so coming into Satan's Slaves, I had previous experiences from Joko Anwar that I wasn't overly won by, but there was enough ingredients in his films to actually make him, to actually entice me to watch this movie. And so after watching Satan's Slaves, I will say this is definitely not as violent as the Mo brothers or a Gareth Evans film, but if you like films from James Wan especially, you like those creepy sort of conjuring films, you're definitely going to get something out of Satan's Slaves, because I thought atmospherically this is fantastic, and this is definitely what makes you want to watch this movie. You actually go in there expecting a horror film, and Joko Anwar really emulates what it is to be scared. There's a lot of jump scares in this movie, and there's a lot of visuals that actually really creep me out. So they complement each other. Is that sometimes you know when the jump scare is coming because there is the generic use of music, but I thought as though the jump scares were still effective, because although you knew it was around the corner, the actual visualization of it still crept me out. And so the production levels of this movie was fantastic. I like the secluded area, but the visuals that come into play with the jump scares I thought contributed to something that, although I've seen before, I still enjoyed what was actually happening. I really like the characters. The characters are really well thought out. I didn't feel as though there were any annoying characters in this movie, which is definitely a breath of fresh air. And so I was invested into what this family were going through and what this family had to do in order to keep afloat. But I was also invested in the secret behind this family that really complicates issues and throws the cat amongst the pigeons, because this situation is going to go from bad to worse. But you understand why these people made these decisions in the past, because they, in order to get a better life, sometimes you have to make a deal with some things that actually have consequences, but you're not thinking of those as consequences when you make that initial decision. But when it's time to face up to the music, this is ultimately on the shoulders of this family who are trying to pick up the pieces. And so I thought there's a lot of innocence in this movie that was corrupted by the evil that this film has, and I actually really like the way it went about its business. Now the end of the film I thought was actually quite decent. This is where it throws in a different subgenre of the horror genre that I think a lot of fans of this particular subgenre, without giving anything away, I think a lot of people are going to like. And so it's not only a supernatural kind of film, it's also a movie that does integrate other subgenres that I definitely feel as though a lot of people are going to enjoy it. So if you are a fan of the new wave of Indonesian film, then I definitely think you're going to really like Satan's Slaves. Now I'm not sure, I've been told that this is a remake. I'm not sure of that because I never heard of this film before I actually saw it, and so I can't really make comparisons. But if it is a remake and you have seen the original, please feel free to share your opinions. As I said, I don't know if that is fact, because, as I said, I haven't heard of it, so I'm just judging based on what I know from Joko Anwar's experience. And so it's definitely a movie that does have a very good runtime. I felt as though everything was done for a very strong purpose, so there's no real filler. So it's a solid plan that is executed very solidly in a world that has been, has let me down quite a bit. With horror films, you're expecting something really good, and it just doesn't really deliver. Whereas this movie, I wasn't expecting too much, but it delivered a lot more than I anticipated. And so that's something that definitely needs to be applauded. There is a bit of violence in the movie, but the movie does really rely on that psychological impact of the horror set pieces and also the plight of this family. But there are some horrendous moments as far as gore is concerned, but it doesn't rely on the gore as much as the Moe Brothers and a Gareth Evans film. So if you go in there expecting a bloodbath, you're going to be disappointed. But if you like your James Wan type of horror film, then Satan Slays is one I would say check out. My only problems with the movie, as I said, there is a lot of generic formula that goes into it. So although it's done in a very impressive way, and I thought as though it was effective in what it was doing, although you can kind of brace yourself for the impact. And so it didn't really hit you as much because I always felt as though I'd seen this sort of thing before. So it does borrow a lot of very repetitive and tired ideas, but I thought as though it executed those ideas in a way that definitely makes it worth at least one viewing. So if you like this kind of thing, Satan Slays comes recommended. I'm going to give this movie 3.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.